So we've started a new tradition here, which is very on brand for me
Okay.
as how we upheld that tradition today, I should say. So John has decided that he must have sugar before we record the podcast.
Yes, absolutely.
If he doesn't, we're boring podcasters.
I feel like a few episodes ago, I've been trying to be healthy. And so I've been, controlling what I eat on a day-to-day basis. Mornings and afternoons are my lower intake and a lot of protein. But I need sugar to podcast. I think if I want to be interesting and funny, I don't know. I just feel like lame boiled eggs type of person if we don't have sugar.
This is the Exploring the National Parks podcast with Dirt in My Shoes. My name is Ash, and I'm a former park ranger and the founder of Dirt in My Shoes. I think that the parks are best seen from the trail, and I'm here to make national park trip planning easy.
And I'm John. I carry the kids on the trails, I tell stories, and notice all the things that Ash doesn't care about much, like trees.
Join us as we show you around America's spectacular national parks.
We're sharing our favorite places, fun facts, adventures, and misadventures.
And we'll even throw in a little trip planning.
Let's start exploring.
So today we had donuts, which is what I'm talking about being very on brand. I am a donut connoisseur.
Yes.
I try donuts wherever we go. Anytime there's the opportunity for a donut,
Yes.
I am there.
It is true. And I think that a lot of people overuse the word connoisseur, but you really are like the sommelier or whatever. I don't drink wine, and so I don't know what they call the people that are like the experts in sommelier. You're that for donuts.
I am. So we had probably the best donuts in the world right before we sat down to podcast today.
Oh, they were so good.
We're both feeling great.
Fresh, hot donuts made from a food truck.
They're sourdough donuts made by Mennonites.
Yep.
And they are so good.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, we are rear in and ready to go today to talk about the fun facts about Teddy Roosevelt National Park.
I'm so excited.
We've got donuts in our system, lots of sugar coursing through our veins. So we are here for this, and we are so excited to talk about this park.
Yeah.
That a lot of people don't even know is a park.
Yeah, exactly. Or we'll get into this, but like a lot of people don't know why he has a park.
Right.
And so we're going to talk a lot about a lot of things today. It's going to be a great episode, and I'm very excited.
Yep.
But Ash, I have to start out by saying and admitting that you're probably very aware of this. But right now, as I was preparing for this episode, I was very acutely aware of it. And what I'm aware of is how little I know about important things.
Okay.
And like, I don't know. If you've ever seen the movie National Treasure with Nicolas Cage, I feel like living with Ash is like living with Nicolas Cage.
No, don't say that. He's so annoying
in
that movie.
Nicolas Cage is great in every movie he's in.
No, he's not. But also, he's really a know-it-all in that movie, and it drives me crazy.
Well, that's kind of my point, I guess. Is that you're like Nicolas Cage and I'm like Riley, his trusty sidekick. And during the movie, Nicolas Cage knows, like you said, he knows everything. But every once in a while, there's a scene, just like in National Treasure, where Nicolas Cage doesn't know something. And in those times, I feel like Riley, when he has his moment and he says, wait, you don't know this? I know something that you don't know? Hold on a second. Let me just take in this moment. This is cool. Is this how you feel all the time? Except for now, of course. At which point I've taken it too far and I am ushered back into normal life where Ash knows most of the important stuff and I know some of the stuff around the margins of the important stuff.
Okay.
That's kind of my life. And as I don't know, just recently I've been feeling like there's so many things I don't know. Don't get me wrong. I'm constantly learning new things. Like I recently learned how to bottle things, and now we have a pantry full of peaches and apple butter and stuff like that. And Ash was really proud of me on this one. I learned how to redeem a digital coupon at the grocery store. That was a big moment for me, wasn't it?
I think you're only 40, so it's never too late to learn something new.
Exactly. I know. And so I'm always learning new things. But I will say, I think the speed by which I'm recognizing things I don't know, that far outpaces the actual pace at which I'm learning new things.
Yeah.
And so I'm learning I don't know so much way faster than I'm actually learning things. But I think learning new things is fun. Learning how to do things is really fun. But one of my favorite things to learn nowadays is learning why I do things.
Okay.
And I think there's a lot of times Ash wishes she knew why I do things. Like you were telling me, what was that thing about the pressure washing that you were telling me about?
Oh, okay. So we're prepping to move, and we needed to get our house ready for a showing. So I have like this huge long list of things we need to clean. And like, I've been spending weeks like decluttering the house and packing stuff up and stuff. And I tell John, okay, we have that showing tomorrow, so the house needs to be really clean. Well, he decides that night is the time that he needs to hook up the travel trailer and pull it into the driveway so he can do some projects on it. And I'm like, literally right before we put the house on the market for a showing, you're just like, what are you doing? So I saw this reel from a lady, and she was like, we have a birthday party today with a ton of kids coming over, and I told my husband I needed help with it. And he decided the best way to help was to pressure wash the driveway. And I'm like, oh my gosh, is that a husband thing? I don't know, because John literally just did that to me with these showings.
It feels like some of these big things, these bigger projects that we're holding on to as soon as we have to do something big together, like the pressure finally builds up to the point where I must do it now. It may not be the most helpful thing.
We are not pulling the travel trailer into the driveway right now. It's like...
So that's one of the things that Ash probably wonders why, and I kind of do too. Why do I do those things? But I think what I'm talking about specifically in preparation for today's episode was, why do we do things in like our American culture? Like, why do we drive on the right side of the road and other places drive on the left? Or why do we give each other wedding rings? Or why do we wear bow ties and like a regular tie? Who was the first person that did that? And why did they do it? Or shake somebody's hand. Or why do girl pants and girl shirts have like their buttons on the different side from mine?
Why do they never have pockets either?
Yeah, exactly. I feel like there are some really interesting origin stories out there that I don't know about. Well, I was listening to a podcast the other day, and the hosts were a couple of British guys, and they were saying that it just feels different when they come to America. People are confident and believe that they can make things happen. And they said that it just didn't feel like that very much back home in England. Like if they wanted to start a business, when they came to America, everybody was like hyping them up, like they could do it. But back home, it didn't feel that way. And I thought to myself, why? Why is America different from England in that way? Like, why in America do we tell our kids that if they work hard or they can do whatever and be whatever they want to be, and then they believe us,
Mm-hmm.
Well, it turns out the origin story of that is kind of cool. That they kind of trace it back to Benjamin Franklin. He was born the 10th son of a poor candle maker. He was basically an indentured servant at age 12. He ran away at 17. He only had 2 years of formal education, and yet he became a printer, a publisher, an author, an inventor, a scientist, a diplomat, and was world famous for just being smart.
Mm-hmm.
And so nowadays people think of him as kind of like the origin of the rags to riches story, or like a self-made man, the original self-made man.
Okay.
And he lived out that story that we tell ourselves as Americans is possible. And our culture just took it. And 250 years later, everybody's like, you can be whatever you want when you grow up, and it's here in America. And I think America is full of all kinds of cool origin stories. And for us and for our business and for this podcast, we're in the conservation movement. And we want to take care of national parks and things. But I think a lot of people don't realize some of the most important characters or important stories in the conservation movement came from Teddy Roosevelt.
Yeah.
Which brings us to today's episode. Today's episode isn't going to be like a traditional fun facts episode because the park itself is so tied up in the man himself. And so we're going to kind of mix back and forth between like celebrating the park, like the nature, and celebrating the man.
Yeah, I think that feels right. That
Yes.
feels good because I don't know if you guys know this, but we named our travel trailer, said travel trailer that John tried to fix in the driveway. His name is Teddy Roosevelt.
Yes, exactly.
So our travel trailer's name is Teddy. But it's because when we lived in that travel trailer and we were driving around the national parks and camping in the national parks, we did that for 3 years. We just over all these national parks that we visited and all these public lands that we went to, it seemed like Teddy Roosevelt had his hand in a lot of them.
Yes.
We definitely felt that. And we came to appreciate him a lot he wasn't a perfect man, obviously, but like for the ideals around, yes, let's protect this. And yes, we love these natural spaces.
Right.
They're important to us.
Yeah.
And that was a very Teddy Roosevelt mentality. And so, yeah, we're huge fans. And I love that he has a national park named after him.
I know. It's so cool. And I think when people think of conservation and preservation, everybody thinks of like the standard bearer being John Muir. And John Muir is amazing. Don't get me wrong. And his park is Yosemite in my mind.
Yeah.
But I think people rush to John Muir and they don't. It's like John Muir in some ways and Teddy Roosevelt, they were the same generation working on the same things just from different angles and different perspectives. And so it's really interesting. And I think if people put John Muir's head on Mount Rushmore, they would understand why it's up there.
Right.
But it's interesting. George Washington, first president, amazing general, boom. People understand why he's there. Thomas Jefferson, Declaration of Independence, Louisiana Purchase, boom. Abraham Lincoln, Civil War, freed the slaves, kept the Union together, boom. Theodore Roosevelt,
Everyone's
crickets.
like, who's that guy?
Yeah, exactly. Nobody knows why he is up there, which is crazy because he is the origin story of so many cool things, not just conservation wise. And so we're going to cover a bunch of things today, but like he modernized the Navy. He built the Panama Canal, which changed the entire landscape.
He built it?
Not himself. Yeah, it was amazing. He kind of took over. The French failed to build the Panama Canal, and then he took it over, and then he did it.
Okay.
He completed it. So suck on that, French.
Oh my gosh.
But he transformed domestic politics and our economy. He was a huge believer in fairness and everybody getting what he called a square deal. He wanted business owners and the people they employed and the customers all to be treated fairly, which I think everybody can get on board with. And he wanted businesses to be profitable, but he didn't want consumers to be at risk because of bad products. And so he championed things like the Federal Meat Inspection Act, which makes you like, as you hear the name of that, the Federal Meat Inspection Act, kind of makes you like cringe about what happened before.
Yeah.
You know?
Like, we definitely need that one.
Exactly. Or the Pure Food and Drug Act of 1906. He's coming out of like a time period where like you had snake oil salesmen selling opium as medicine, And so he's basically paving the way for today's Food and Drug Administration. Or because he fought for the rights of labor by improving business practices, it was the precursor to today's OSHA. And so he took on some of the richest, most powerful men in the country who were being pretty bad guys. And he busted up dishonest criminal monopolies and trusts. And he used his pen. He wielded it like a sword to cut through red tape, and he set the precedent for a lot of presidents after him to take executive action. And so he was a pretty powerful person, and honestly, one of my favorite presidents, not just because of what he accomplished, but just because he's a really interesting person in general. And like I said, today's episode, it'll be a weird mixture of biography mixed with national park cool stuff. But I think fun fact number one really kind of encapsulates what the purpose of this park was. And fun fact number one is that Theodore Roosevelt National Park is the only national park unit ever to have held the title National Memorial Park.
Okay.
Because there's lots of national parks, there's lots of monuments, there's lots of memorials and historic sites. And in Washington, D.C., there's even an administrative unit called the National Mall and Memorial Parks. But there has only ever been one actual national memorial park, and that was Theodore Roosevelt National Memorial Park when it was first established.
Okay.
Because it's designated specifically to memorialize a man and the impact on our country.
Okay.
And they decided the place for that memorial park is the place that had a huge impact on him personally.
Right. Which is why this national park is in North Dakota.
Right.
Kind of all the way up there in the grasslands.
Uh-huh.
And you're wondering, why is something in North Dakota named after Teddy Roosevelt? You would think he spent more time in Washington and, in his political career.
Well, he's from New York, too.
Yeah, that it would be more of an Eastern park if you're going to name it after him. But that's what's so cool about this particular location is that it had significance to him as a man.
In a lot of ways, the place in North Dakota impacted the man who then impacted the country.
Yeah.
And so it's really cool. I feel like North Dakota I'm going to switch back and forth between Theodore Roosevelt and Teddy Roosevelt. It's just going to happen. So, but it feels like North Dakota to Teddy Roosevelt was kind of like Master Shifu in Kung Fu Panda. It's Teddy Roosevelt is Jack Black or Po, the panda, and he's being kind of mentored by Master Shifu.
Mm-hmm.
And Master Shifu beat the crap out of Po.
Right.
Over and over, day after day, Po got pummeled as part of his training. And most of the time by the Furious Five, Tigress, Monkey, Crane, Viper, and Mantis. And anyways, but through all of this turmoil, Po never gave up. And eventually he became the legendary Dragon Warrior, And for Teddy Roosevelt, North Dakota really did that for him.
It beat the crap out of him.
It really did. Oh my gosh. But he was kind of beat up before that too.
Yeah. I mean, that's why he went to
Exactly.
North Dakota, is because he was not having a great life up to that point in a lot of ways.
So we'll talk about that for sure.
Yeah.
And how North Dakota and him, so many things happened. But if I kind of want to sum up, I mentioned that he's just a really interesting personality too, like an interesting person. Fun fact number 2 is my attempt to sum him up in like one sentence.
Okay.
Fun fact number 2 is that Theodore Roosevelt is both the man who was the inspiration for the teddy bear and the man who refused to go to the hospital until after he gave a campaign speech, despite the fact that he had just been shot in the chest.
Oh, okay.
And so he's the same person, simultaneously the toughest and most endearing man you ever met. Soft and cuddly, but also tough, rugged, and determined.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So let's start the teddy bear story.
Okay.
In 1902, Theodore Roosevelt, who was president of the United States at the time, was invited on a hunting trip to Mississippi. They knew he loved to hunt, and so they planned a bear hunt for him and his group. Well, while other people in the group had success on the hunt, Roosevelt was pretty unlucky. So his assistants tracked down a bear, tied it to a tree, and then they went and got him to come and shoot it.
Sheesh.
But Roosevelt thought that it was very unsportsmanlike. So he refused to shoot a bear that was tied to a tree. Well, reports of this story made it to the newspaper and then circulated around the country. And a Brooklyn candy shop owner who made stuffed animals on the side decided to make a stuffed toy bear and dedicate it to the president, calling it Teddy's Bear. And now kids all around the world, including our own, go to sleep hugging their own teddy bears.
Cute.
Yeah, that is
and
super
also
cute.
true. Very unsportsmanlike to shoot a bear tied to a tree.
Right, absolutely. No self-respecting sportsman would ever do that. So cool story. Okay, now the bullet. 10 years after the teddy bear incident, Teddy Roosevelt was in Milwaukee on his way to give a campaign speech. As he was leaving his hotel, a deranged individual stepped out and shot him in the chest with a gun. The only reason he survived was because he kept his 50-page speech and his metal glasses case in his jacket, and it slowed the bullet down.
Oh my gosh.
So he's standing there bleeding, and he actually has to step in to stop the crowd of angry people from beating up this guy. And he stays there protecting his assassin until the police arrive to arrest him. And then his assistants, they say, okay, we're done with this. Let's get you to the hospital. And he says, it takes more than a bullet to kill a bull moose.
True.
And he won't go to the hospital. And then he goes and gives a 90-minute speech.
Oh my gosh.
All while bleeding. And the bullet is still lodged in his chest.
Oh my gosh.
Once his speech ends and they finally get him to the hospital, the doctors say he's lucky. The bullet didn't go too deep, so none of his vital organs got hit. But it was too deep to safely remove, so they just sewed him up. They called it good. And they never removed the bullet.
Call. Wait, how did he die? Lead poisoning?
We don't really know exactly.
Sheesh.
He died several years later, but he's like Iron Man, it's because the shrapnel, in his heart.
I would also venture to say that that's a pretty stupid decision to not take care of that more quickly. But what do I know?
What do we know? Exactly. But that's Teddy Roosevelt.
It's only a flesh wound.
The Black Knight. I'll nibble your legs off. But anyways, yeah, that's Teddy Roosevelt. Like in a nutshell, like he lived by a code, and he was bold and charismatic and fearless in a lot of ways, maybe overly so. But people just loved him. Mm-hmm. People absolutely just loved him. If you've ever seen Newsies with Christian Bale, there's this.
Who hasn't?
Who exactly? There's this great cameo of Teddy Roosevelt at the end, and it shows just how much people loved him. Mm-hmm. Like in the streets of New York, he's riding around in a carriage. Everybody loves him. Well, he had to be forged into that man, and the man that became the president of the United States. And North Dakota was that forge for him. Just like Poe and the Dragon Warrior and Shifu, Teddy said that he never would have become president without his experiences in North Dakota. Because he was a mess when he arrived there. His life was just turmoil. And I think the reason North Dakota could kind of put him back together was because that area of North Dakota was no stranger to turmoil. In fact, it was turmoil that created that landscape. And it might surprise a lot of people to hear that, because if you were to drive through North Dakota or fly over it like a lot of people do, it probably seems pretty tame. Mm-hmm. And generally speaking, that's true. When you drive through it, you're going to see a lot of farmland. And what isn't farmland is grasslands. And what people overlook and don't really even know is there is the Badlands. Mm-hmm. And they are so cool. You can see them on Google Maps. It's awesome. To see them from the satellite view is amazing. And if you pan across North Dakota, looking at the satellite view from east to west, mainly in the southern half of the state, you'll start at the Minnesota state line and zoom in just far enough, and you'll see all these little square plots and circle plots of farmland. And As you move the map to the west, the pattern continues. Hundreds of miles of pure American prairie, farmland, grassland, rangeland, separated into small, square, rectangular little plots as far as the eye can see. You'll pass a few lakes, the Missouri River, but what you don't realize is that the further you go west, the higher you're getting in elevation. And it isn't much, only about 8 feet per mile, but over a few hundred miles it adds up. And then all of a sudden, the farmland stops. And those circular and rectangular plots of land are replaced by what Gimli from Lord of the Rings would call an impassable labyrinth of razor-sharp rocks. Which is true, minus the razor-sharp rocks.
Because, they're not very sharp.
But the peaceful agricultural landscape of North Dakota is suddenly replaced with a huge north and south labyrinth of land that is churned up and tore up for miles and miles. And it's so cool to look at the satellite view because it looks like pure chaos. And these are the Badlands of North Dakota. This is where Teddy Roosevelt came to when he was at his lowest, and this is where you will now find Theodore Roosevelt National Park, where the gentle prairie of North Dakota falls apart, and falls apart spectacularly.
Ah, nice. A lot of people think there are really only Badlands in South Dakota,
right.
Badlands National Park.
Mm-hmm.
And so what a surprise to get up to Theodore Roosevelt National Park and be like, this park is full of Badlands.
Yeah, exactly.
Pretty cool.
And it's so pretty.
Yeah.
They're very different Badlands from the South Dakota Badlands.
Mm-hmm.
But as you move into them, the land drops off from the main prairie, exposing layers and layers of colorful sedimentary rocks. Yellows and oranges, whites and grays, blacks and blues. And as you gaze into the Badlands, the land seems to rise and fall in unpredictable ways, with large and small Badland buttes making up the walls of the labyrinth for miles into the distance. And it's just kind of mesmerizing because you don't know why it's here. It doesn't fit in with the rest of North Dakota, and those colorful buttes sort of wall off the rest of the world, creating a wild and western sort of secret garden.
Mm-hmm.
And when you stand on the edge of it, looking in from areas like Painted Canyon, it's just kind of charming.
Mm-hmm.
Not like Prince Charming, rom-com type of charming, but like charming in the way that you would like charm a snake. You know, like you would steal its focus and enchant it. And I don't want to blow it out of proportion because, listen, Theodore Roosevelt doesn't have the stature of a lot of other Western national parks. It doesn't have the towering peaks of Glacier or Yosemite, Rocky Mountain, or Grand Teton, and it doesn't have the vast canyons, towering trees, or shimmering lakes. It's not really a national park that anyone would put a great or a grand in front of because of the awe that it inspires. But even still, when you come out of this tamed landscape of the Great Plains, you can't help but stand on the edge of these Badlands and let it draw you in.
Mm-hmm.
You'll be looking out from viewpoints, and before you know it, you're charmed into mentally scouting and plotting paths through its labyrinths and twists and turns, wondering what lies beyond, you know, that butte or that one over there. And it's just I know New Mexico is the land of enchantment, but Teddy Roosevelt does that for me too.
Mm-hmm.
And I really think that it's kind of like the secret garden of the Great Plains. A landscape that, like I said, was forged out of turmoil, just like our hero, Teddy Roosevelt. Turmoil that seemed to come from all directions. Fun fact number 3 is that the Badlands of North Dakota, which encompass Theodore Roosevelt National Park, were formed due to a unique combination of glaciers and ice sheets from the north, mountains and volcanoes from the west, and rivers and floods from the south.
Okay.
And it all started 65 million years ago. Do you know what happened 65 million years ago, Ash?
The comet hit the Earth.
And what went extinct?
And the dinosaurs went extinct.
Correct. Supposedly.
Was I really right?
I don't know.
Oh.
It
Was that what you were thinking, though?
That is exactly.
Oh, okay.
That is the timeline. Whether or not it was an actual comet or an asteroid.
Yeah, because dinosaurs weren't real, so.
Well,
That's an ongoing joke, by the way.
This is a factual episode until Ash, of course, jumps in. Oh, no. But yeah, 65 million years ago was a big deal on planet Earth. Something big happened. And at that same time, North America was warping and cracking as the Rocky Mountains were being formed and raised up.
Okay.
And volcanoes formed all across the western United States, and they were erupting and spewing massive amounts of ash into the atmosphere. But as the Rockies were being lifted up, erosional forces were also tearing relentlessly at them. Wind, water, ice were tearing at these new mountains and ripping all kinds of sediment out of them. And a lot of those sediments were being deposited here in North Dakota by ancient rivers. And those volcanoes that were erupting in the west, a lot of the ash was being blown eastward and falling in huge amounts here in North Dakota. And lots of ash that didn't fall here still ended up here because ancient rivers picked it up and dumped it here.
Mm-hmm.
And so you had layers and layers and layers of new sedimentary earth building up right here at Teddy Roosevelt National Park. Some of it coming slowly, some of it coming in huge, spectacular events like floods and things like that, which is why you can find petrified wood, by the way, in Theodore Roosevelt National Park.
Yeah, that was actually a huge surprise to me the first time we went. It was like, why is this here?
Exactly. Because when trees and forests get buried quickly, they can sidestep the process of decomposition, right?
Yep.
And it allows the trees to fossilize over a long period of time. So the mountains and volcanoes to the west are really mainly responsible for the building up of the land in this area. But water is responsible for shaping it. And it came from the north and the south. From the north, you have the great continental ice sheets. And from the south, the Little Missouri River.
Mm-hmm.
And despite its
Little
name...
Mo.
Yes, exactly. There's even a trail for it, right?
Yep.
Little Mo. And despite its name, the Little Mo, the Little Missouri River, has a huge impact. It's the chief force that shaped the area because for millions of years, it's been flowing through this land. Sometimes meandering, sometimes surging.
Okay.
And all the while sculpting the landscape, curving here, chiseling there, whittling, chipping, slashing deeper and deeper into the landscape, always in a mostly northerly direction, but frequently changing its mind about the route it wants to take, until it hit the power from the north. Water in another form, an ice sheet thousands of feet thick, a truly immovable object, because it stopped the Little Missouri River in its tracks.
Okay.
Which had been going north almost all the time. And it caused the river to dig out a new channel. And you can actually, if you look at the map, like the Little Missouri River meanders north, and then all of a sudden it takes like a 90-degree turn to the right.
Really?
Yeah, to the east. And that's when it like skirted the edge of that giant ice sheet.
Oh, yeah. I'm looking at the map right now.
It's pretty cool.
So it goes from the south unit up north to the north unit-ish is where it makes that turn.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting.
But don't let that... And most of the time when you see the Little Missouri River, it's just kind of like puddling along. You know, it doesn't really seem like there's a whole lot of power there, but don't let it fool you, because it can transform into a raging flood really quick. And when it does, that's when it does a lot of its most amazing work. But it's in those long, peaceful times when sections of the river would become kind of still and swampy, and vegetation would build up into dense layers of peat over thousands of years. And over time, layers and layers would build up kind of on top of that peat, and it added pressure and weight, and it compacted it into something called lignite, which is a soft kind of coal, which actually lights on fire and smolders underground when it's struck by lightning, which we've actually seen some of the results of that.
Okay.
If you remember some of the smoke coming out on that one hike.
The coal vein trail.
Exactly. Yes. And you can actually dig it out and use it to heat your cabin, which...
We can?
You can.
Okay.
Guess who you would often find digging this lignite coal out of the hillside to burn in his stove?
I'm guessing Teddy Roosevelt.
You guessed it. Teddy Roosevelt National Park. And he originally came out here into this area for hunting. He wanted the experience of hunting buffalo. He ended up meeting a couple of guys that he really liked, and they decided to go into business together, ranching. And after getting things set up with them, he went back home. 5 months later, his wife gave birth to their first child. 2 days later, on Valentine's Day, he sat by his mother's bed as she died of typhoid fever. And a few hours later on the same day, just in a different room in the same house, he sat by his wife's bed as she died of kidney failure.
So sad. His mom and his wife died on the same day.
Right, Valentine's Day.
Yeah. And
in his journal, you'll find a very simple entry. The light has gone out of my life.
Oh.
Which is be rough.
Yeah.
I can't imagine having a day like that. I mean, he was absolutely crushed. I mean, everything was looking up for him up to that point. But after putting his affairs in order for his newborn daughter, born 2 days earlier, and taking care of some of his professional responsibilities, he just needed to get away. You know, he needed some solitude. He needed to go somewhere far away and live a different life for a little while. So he went back to North Dakota.
Yeah.
And the first ranch that he and his partners had set up, the ranch that is nearest to Medora with the Maltese Cross cabin, that was his first ranch. But he found that it was just too close to people. You know?
I feel that.
You can understand that a lot.
I just want you to leave me alone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially after what he went, he didn't want people stopping in and talking about, current events and stuff like that. He'd just gone through something pretty traumatic. And so he got on his horse and he just rode north. He followed the little Missouri River, and after about 35 miles, he found the peace and solitude that he needed in a quiet little part of the country where he could be alone and grieve. And he decided to start a new ranch right there, calling it the Elkhorn Ranch. And he recruited a couple of other friends to help him manage it. And they soon began construction on the cabin that would be his home in North Dakota. And it was living in this place that really put him back together. 35 miles north of just about, and far away from miles and miles from everybody else. And it was the hard work of building that ranch that kept him busy and gave his days purpose, and his heart and mind healed over time. And he was able to grieve properly from the losses he suffered back home. And the Elkhorn Ranch really acted as the base camp for his life. He would always go back to that place. He'd hunting, and it rekindled some of the first sparks of joy and excitement back into his life.
I think that's why I like that park so much. Because to your point, it's not as grand as a lot of other Western parks and stuff, but I feel like that feeling, like if you know a little bit of the story behind the park, and you know that that's why Teddy Roosevelt came out here again, was because he was trying to heal.
Right.
I feel like you can feel that throughout the park as you're there as well. It's a place where you know that it has healed people before and that it can heal you now.
Right. Exactly. And it's very quiet compared to so many other national parks. It really, especially if you go like to the Elkhorn unit.
Yeah. Yeah.
You will find the solitude that he found, because it really has, in a lot of ways, the land inside the park hasn't seemed to change that much.
Yeah, I just love, and we're big proponents, obviously, of nature for healing, because that's why you go into nature a lot of the time, is just to feel better.
Yeah.
I don't know, it works for me.
Yes.
And I love being out in nature because I can calm myself down, and I can calm my mind, disconnect, work on relationships with my favorite people. Like, there's so many good things. So I just love, though, that this particular park was built off of somebody who felt pain and found healing.
Right. Oh, absolutely. The healing effects of nature It's on full display here.
Yeah. So, like, when you go, stand and look at a view and, soak it all in and feel those healing effects. I mean, it's a vibe. This park is a vibe. But it's not like a funky vibe or a quirky vibe or it's a calmness that I feel when I'm here.
I think the only other national park that I can kind of say has had a similar vibe would be Hot Springs. It had kind of the healing waters was what people
came to heal.
Exactly.
Specifically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that one, specifically the healing waters in Hot Springs, this one,
one has a weird vibe too, though.
It has a lot of interesting vibes. But this one, it's the ability to just quiet your life. Mm-hmm. And years later, he would say of that land that's now named after him that it was here that the romance of my life began.
Mm. Yeah.
Being here in North Dakota had really helped him get through his period of deep sorrows. Mm-hmm. And but romances are not problem free.
They aren't.
Romances.
As he looks side-eyes me over here.
Romances often involve many bumps in the road. At the side eye, Ash tried to break up with me a bunch of times while we were dating. There were plenty of bumps in the road that I pushed through.
And look what it got you.
Exactly.
Your perseverance was rewarded.
Exactly. But Teddy, he was about to face down as he was healing, and he was healing well. He was about to face down some pretty serious bumps. As he was building his ranch, he recorded a lot of his thoughts and his observations, which were later published in some of his books. In his writings, he observed that despite the vastness of the American landscape, the resources were not infinite.
Right.
And he worried that ranching, as it was being practiced at the time, was unsustainable because the prairie was being flooded with cattle. And in the absence of at least some kind of management plan, the land, as vast as it was being overgrazed. Mm-hmm. Well, on his third winter at the Elkhorn Ranch, everything went bad. 1886 had been rough. The growing season was short because spring came late. Summer was extra hot. Wildfires burned through some areas, and anything that did grow was mowed down by the flood of cattle in the area. All that to say, when winter came, the cattle were thin, and the cattlemen didn't have much to feed them with. And then came the storms. Blizzard after blizzard pounded the area, blanketing it with snow and covering up any food that was available to the poor cows. The temperature quickly dropped dangerously low, freezing temperatures as low as negative 41 degrees Fahrenheit.
Oof. That's that wind chill, man.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. And as you drive through North Dakota, there's always those big beams that cut off the freeway. Mm-hmm.
Turn around.
Exactly.
You can't drive here in the wind.
Dead men tail no tails. Well, cows froze to death where they stood. And the hardier cows were eating anything they could find, including tar paper off people's houses. They would even find cows frozen to death high up in trees.
Oh.
Because they would climb the snowdrifts that built up from these winds, and they would eat whatever they could find and then freeze to death in the branches.
Sheesh.
Tens of thousands of cattle died in the Badlands that winter. Fun fact number 4, which is not so fun, is that the winter of 1886 was one of the worst on record. An environmental catastrophe where over 80% of the total cattle population in the area died. And Teddy himself lost over half his herd. Ugh. Reports.
That is not the winter to be in North Dakota.
No, exactly. Reports say that when the thaw came the following spring, the Little Missouri River was just filled with thousands of frozen carcasses as they floated down the river.
Oof, gross.
Anyways, I can't imagine having so much loss in such a short period of time. Family losses, business losses, it would have been devastating. He was just getting over the loss of his wife and mother.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's kind of tragically funny to kind of read it now. But after doing a full accounting of how much he had lost, he wrote a letter to his sister. I'm planning to get out of the ranching business.
Yeah. He's like, I'm good here. Like, well, let's try something else.
Oh my gosh. But who wouldn't though?
Yeah.
Seriously, after what probably felt like an act of God, who wouldn't just throw up their arms?
Yeah.
It'd be like, he was probably starting to feel like Job in the Old Testament. Yeah. The universe is really acting against me.
Mm-hmm.
By the time this happened, he was just starting to come out of his depression. But I actually think that he made this decision to get out of the ranching business because he was worried about the future, not necessarily because of the losses. You can weather hard times if you can see good things coming down the road. But I think he was looking down the road and he predicted more trouble because he recognized something that other people didn't. Something larger that was broken. Something that, if it didn't get fixed, was going to cause that catastrophe to happen again. And it wasn't ranching, really, that was the problem. He saw the Badlands and the prairie, and he knew that for thousands of years, millions maybe, the land had supported huge herds of buffalo.
Mm-hmm.
And so it wasn't like the land couldn't handle large amounts of cattle either. It was the management of the natural resource that was the problem. He recognized that as vast and rich as our country was in natural resources, you could still screw it up.
Mm-hmm.
He realized that they weren't managing the land for a healthy system. And I think that's why he got out of the ranching business. He had just witnessed an incredible environmental catastrophe, and nobody was making the changes necessary to prevent it from happening again.
Mm.
And without a change in plan, he's just decided, I'm out.
Yeah.
And so he started selling off his property, and he went back home, and he spent a lot of his time writing books, thinking about and drawing conclusions from his experiences, and sort of refining his ideas. But North Dakota never seemed that far away. Over the next 10 years, he returned almost every year to the Elkhorn Ranch, to hunt mostly, but I think returning to the Dakota Territory acted as a form of spiritual refurbishment for him. And he always seemed to come back a bit sharper after spending time there. Because during the next 10 to 15 years, Teddy went from being a relatively unknown local politician to the most powerful man in America. In 1889, a few years after that winter, he became the commissioner of the U.S. Civil Service. And after working in the civil service for a bit, he became the police commissioner of New York City. And a few years after that, he was appointed assistant secretary of the Navy, a post he resigned so that he could lead the Rough Riders, a voluntary cavalry regiment that fought in Cuba during the Spanish-American War. And luckily, Teddy had learned to fight through difficult situations, because if I've learned anything from Star Wars, it is that having the high ground is really important. At a certain point, just one quick story from that war. At a certain point during the war, the Spanish had the high ground in an area called San Juan Heights. And two very important hills were part of that, the San Juan Hill and Kettle Hill. And U.S. forces were ordered to take it from them. And with his Rough Riders, Roosevelt leading the way, they charged up the hill into enemy fire twice. The first time, it was basically just him and a few buds, because he sounded for the general charge, but nobody heard it.
Oh.
And so it was like, dur, 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 and then just him, a couple of buds just charging up the hill.
Oh, sheesh.
And so then when he realized that nobody came with him, he was just like so ticked off. He told his guys, stay where you're at. And he just like grumpily walked back down the hill. And then he's like, okay, everybody got it this time. And then he charged again. And then they all charged up the hill, and they ended up taking the hill, which was pretty awesome. That same year, after returning home, he was elected governor of New York.
Newsies era.
Exactly.
Yep.
2 years after that, he he became the vice president of the United States.
Okay.
1 year after that, when President McKinley was assassinated, he took over as president of the United States. A meteoric rise, if ever there was one.
I don't think I realized that at all.
Yeah. So fast.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Governor, vice president, president, all within like a 4-year period.
Okay.
Like all of a sudden,
Sheesh.
everybody knew who he was.
Yeah.
But even as he was campaigning in 1900, before he became vice president, he made sure to make a stop in North Dakota, in Medora, near his first ranch with the Maltese cross cabin. And that was where he made the famous statement that it was here that the romance of my life began. He may have traveled the world, but his heart never let go of the time he spent in the Badlands of North Dakota and the lessons he learned there. Listen to this quote from Theodore Roosevelt 7 years later, near the end of his presidency, after being reelected and serving a second full term. And tell me if you think this knowledge that he gained in North Dakota is reflected in his personal experiences. We have become great because of the lavish use of our resources, and we have just reason to be proud of our growth. But the time has come to inquire seriously what will happen when our forests are gone, when the coal, the iron, the oil, and the gas are exhausted, when the soils have been still further impoverished and washed into the streams, polluting the rivers, denuding the fields, and obstructing navigation. These questions do not relate only to the next century or to the next generation. It is time for us now as a nation to exercise the same reasonable foresight in dealing with our great natural resources that would be shown by any prudent man in conserving and widely using the property which contains the assurance of well-being for himself and his children.
Yeah.
He gave that speech at the Conference of Governors that was held at the White House in 1908, and he titled his speech, Conservation, a National Duty. And so I think he became the champion for the change that he wished he had seen after that disastrous winter in 1886.
Yeah.
If he would have seen someone like him campaigning for these types of natural resource management changes, he might have remained a rancher.
Yeah.
But he saw the need and he rose to the occasion.
Which is really interesting because you know that during that time frame, that's when the conservation movement was kind of, I mean, Yellowstone had been established as the first national park, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like we were kind of moving towards doing more of that as a country.
Mm-hmm.
But there was still a big disconnect, I think, between the politics in the East and the parks we're trying to protect in the West.
Right.
And so I like that. I'm not sure that a better president could have come in at that time who cared about that and who had also experienced not the politics side, but the land use side of it. You know, it's like that was a very big turning point, I think, for the National Park Service to keep moving forward as getting established and you know, trying to put those things in place.
Right.
The Park Service wasn't a thing until later.
Yeah.
Like you said, that speech was
1908.
Yeah. So he was there right as we're like making that shift into, maybe we should protect some of this a little bit better, you know, but you needed someone who wasn't just a politician in Washington.
Right.
You needed someone who had experienced what would happen if we didn't take care of it and had actually had that lived experience in the West too. So
exactly. And I think it helps too, because I don't think John Muir could have accomplished what he did, because John Muir, I think, as amazing of an orator as he was, and he made the case for preservation better than anybody else. But Teddy Roosevelt was making the case from a person who was trying to use the land responsibly.
Yeah, but also somebody who wasn't just a really good speaker.
Mm-hmm. He
had the power. He had the backing behind.
Yes.
And the ability to make those decisions.
Exactly.
So that's a really cool period of time, I feel like, where it was just like, it had to be Teddy Roosevelt or someone like him there to continue to push it forward and say, we gotta do this, you guys. This is really important.
Exactly. Oh my gosh. Okay. My favorite story that really illustrates what you're talking about, with his personality kind of being almost defiant in the way that he was pushing it forward and making things happen. There have been other presidents that have kind of been like this. Like Ronald Reagan had a moment where it was kind of like this, where he told Congress to make my day. And Barack Obama, he said that he had a pen and a phone to make things happen. You know, he wanted. Teddy Roosevelt, he took things to a whole nother level of gutsy, if you ask me. In 1891, 10 years before Teddy became president, Congress passed the Forest Reserve Act of 1891. And within this bill, there was a small section that said that the president can, from time to time, set aside public land with forests as a special reserve.
I know, I love this so much.
It literally says, though, from time to time, which I think is funny for a couple of reasons. Number one, it means nothing.
Right.
Right.
You're like, what's time to time?
It could mean every 10 years, it could mean every 100 years, or it could mean once a week.
Yeah.
You know, it has no meaning. But also, to me, it's written like no one really ever expected someone to use that little piece of power.
Yeah.
And whoever wrote that little section of law never met Teddy Roosevelt. Yeah. And Teddy Roosevelt's version of from time to time is whenever the heck he wants. And so by 1907, as we approached the end of his time as president, Teddy was facing a fair amount of opposition because of his many new forest reserves and opposition to the president having the power to do that in the first place.
Right.
One senator from Oregon, he who shall not be named, decided to put an amendment on the annual agricultural appropriations bill going through Congress. And this amendment took away the president's ability to, from time to time, set aside forest reserves. Well, the bill passed.
Okay.
And Teddy, who was a pretty savvy political maneuverer, didn't really see very many options. If he didn't sign it, the bill would automatically become law within 10 days. If he vetoed the law, Congress would probably overrule his veto, and he would make a bunch of enemies. And once again, it would become law with or without his signature anyways. Well, eventually, after passing through Congress, the bill was sent to his office for signature. Teddy was a pretty competitive guy, and having to sign a bill that probably felt like losing, it probably felt like it was rubbing his nose in his defeat. And I imagine that bill sat on his desk day after day like a 500-pound gorilla.
Mm-hmm.
Well, as the bill was sitting on his desk, and as the deadline for signing the bill was fast approaching, it was noted by some of the people in the White House that Teddy was spending hours in his office with his chief forester, Gifford Pinchot. He was the equivalent of the head of the Forest Service. And it turns out they weren't just drinking and commiserating before he had to sign the bill into law. They were coming with a plan to strike back, because there was still plenty of forests out there that needed protection. Yes, Congress had passed a law restricting the president's power to make new forest reserves. Yes, Teddy didn't really have any option but to sign it. Yes, it needed to be signed by a certain date. But that date was still a few days away. And until that bill was signed into law by Teddy himself, Teddy still had the power to, from time to time, set aside and establish forest reserves. And according to Teddy, for those remaining days, from time to time had a new meaning. It now meant as much as he could, as many times as he could before the deadline came.
Second to second to second.
Oh my gosh. This was the conservation movement's greatest buzzer beater of all time. Oh my gosh. We're down by 2. Everybody thinks the game is over. And with no time left on the clock, right before the buzzer goes off, Teddy Roosevelt puts in a 3-pointer. in those last few days and hours before the deadline came, Teddy Roosevelt protected over 16 million acres of forest. He established or combined 17 new national forests throughout Wyoming, Colorado, Montana, Idaho, Washington, and he who shall not be named, Oregon. And they call them the Midnight Forests because they were pretty much working nonstop and through the night to pull this off. And on the eve of what would have been a great loss, Teddy Roosevelt snatched an unlikely victory from the jaws of certain defeat. And by the time the deadline came around, he was happy to sign the bill.
He's like, sure, I already protected it all.
Oh my gosh. Because the provision restricting his power as president was totally obsolete.
That's so funny.
Oh my gosh. There was nothing left to protect. Oh, and people were so mad. And Teddy was giddy about it. You're never more angry about a loss than when you think you've already won.
Right.
And you're never more happy about a win than when you pull off a miracle in the final seconds of the game. And oh my gosh, Teddy was taking a victory lap.
Yeah.
He was so happy. But it's the perfect encapsulation of his personality. Never take a loss lying down, fight to the end, no matter what, and find a way. But what's crazy, this is legitimately insane to me, is that those 16 million acres are only a small percentage of the entire amount of land that he set aside and protected. Mm-hmm. Fun fact number 5 is that in total, Teddy Roosevelt protected almost 230 million acres of land. He established 150 national forests, the first 51 federal bird reservations, the first 18 national monuments, and the first 4 national game preserves and 5 national parks.
Woo-wee. There you go.
And when you add it all up, he protected an area equivalent to the entire eastern seaboard from Maine to Florida throughout the country.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Well, I mean, he also was the one who found the way to use the Antiquities Act to make all those national monuments.
Right.
So
exactly.
And nearby, Devil's Tower was the first national monument. Mm-hmm. We hit Devil's Tower and Teddy Roosevelt National Park, usually in the same trip.
Right.
So I just like that. It just makes me happy.
Oh my gosh. But yeah, he using that pen as a sword, just slashing through red tape.
Yeah.
Because if we were to go just based on like setting up a small national park here, a small national park here, like Yellowstone, just Yosemite, at the pace we were doing it, we would have used up our natural resources throughout the country so much to our detriment.
Yeah.
It would have been so bad. It just makes me like simultaneously so grateful that he did that, and also very interested in limiting the power of the presidency.
I think a lot of people were probably feeling that. He's gone crazy.
I know. But it just worked out really well this time.
Well, and to my point of having him in the presidency during that really big tipping point.
Yeah. Super formative years.
You kind of needed someone, I think, in there saying, let's just protect it all while it was still protectable. Because later on, now it's quite hard to get a new national park.
Yeah.
We don't have as much land available to just set it aside. People have had to get creative over the years, especially in the East, like Acadia, where they're just like piecing together private parcels of land. Like, let's make a national park, but this land is already built on. It's already being used
because it's so privatized back east, and the parks are smaller and way more expensive to create.
Yeah, but I just think while we could kind of just say, this forest hasn't been logged yet. Let's go ahead and set this aside or whatever,
Yeah,
it was really important that happened at that time.
exactly.
I think, so.
And I think I wouldn't trust most presidents to be so brazen in their use of political power, but he really was operating in a realm where he had deep insight, because insight gained at great personal cost to him. Gained in North Dakota, right here in Teddy Roosevelt National Park. His experience in this park enabled him to see the vision for the rest of the country.
Yeah.
And I just love the way that they decided to memorialize him and the impact that he's had on our country by naming a national park after him.
Yeah.
A national park in the place that gave him the experience
so that he could create more national parks.
Exactly.
Basically. Yeah.
And
so cool.
And what better place to memorialize him? I mean, honestly, the place that changed his life, which in turn changed the country, the secret garden of the Great Plains, Theodore Roosevelt National Park.
So for your task today, we want you we'll provide the link in the show notes, but go read through some of these places that were designated as national parks or monuments, or you said bird?
Yeah, there's bird refuges.
Stuff like that. Go look through the list and see what's on there, and see if some of your local parks
or even national forests.
Yeah, forests, monuments, stuff like that. You might be really close to one that was designated by Teddy Roosevelt, which is really cool.
Yeah.
I was looking through the list. There's some interesting ones on here for sure. But a lot of them are now national recreation areas. So there's a good chance that there's one within an hour or two from your house.
Right.
That was land set aside by Teddy Roosevelt during his presidency. So
right.
Pretty cool. Go look through the list and head over to the Dirt in My Shoes Facebook or Instagram page. We'll have a post there for you to add your insights or choose, let us know what's near you or where you've been that has been influenced by Teddy Roosevelt.
The man, the legend, Teddy Roosevelt.
Forgot the myth.
Yes.
But thank you so much for being here today. We love sharing stuff like this. I mean, it lights me up. It's really fun to talk about because the national parks and the national monuments, and there's so many that are so near and dear to our hearts. So it's cool to talk about kind of the backstory behind a lot of those. And we're so glad you're here to have that conversation with us.
Exactly. And if you're enjoying the podcast, please give us a 5-star review. We really appreciate you. And it helps spread the word to other people about amazing men like Theodore Roosevelt, who really influenced and protected amazingly large tracts of land throughout the country. So thank you again for being here. And we hope we get to see you out on the trail.